Hi, it's Creative Mornings, and today our theme is magic, and we have Sanna Mander talking. Come on in. Så, vänta.
Hello, good morning. Nice to see all of you here. My husband is here, my best friend is here, my intern is here, some of my clients are here, so nice. I'm a bit nervous. I made this presentation like yesterday and last night. So this morning I put on my power suit glitter, so I'll get some confidence. Yeah, I'm 36 years old. I have 1 billion kids. I'm Pisces, and I was born in Tornio in northern Finland. When I was a kid, we moved to Stockholm. I grew up in Stockholm, and when I was 19, I moved to Helsinki. And I stayed here. And when I moved here, I was really poor and a bit unhappy, but now I'm rich and I'm a typical Kruununhaka lady and typical middle class. And I consider myself very lucky. And I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people on earth, like especially with work. I feel like so thankful for being able to do like what I really like every day and getting paid for it. And I'm still amazed that I can actually draw. Like sometimes when I've done something and I see it like 1 year after, I'm like, did I really do this? It's amazing. So also I feel rich because I have like millions of ideas for everything and in good and bad. But like I just never get out of ideas. They just come to me. Like this is the sexiest sight on earth, a blank paper, because you can just like go ahead, start doing whatever. And yeah, so when I make an illustration, it starts like this. I work 100% digitally, but I draw on a Wacom Cintiq. It's like a screen with a pen, and you can draw on it. So here is me yesterday working on a Christmas wrapping paper. This is a bit speedy, so it won't take too long. So this is in Photoshop. This was a blank page from the beginning. I've drawn some Christmas stuff here and there. I don't think I'm using Photoshop in like how you're supposed to draw with it. I draw with it. I just use like a brush and I fill in different colors. And yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to use Photoshop, but this is how I use it, and it works. This is a Christmas wrapping paper for Finnish Red Cross. They have like a flea market, Kontti, and this Christmas they have a campaign that they're gonna encourage people to buy Christmas gifts from them, like books and cups and stuff, and they're gonna use this Christmas wrapping paper as like decorations in the store, and also that you get this wrapping paper for your gifts. A little ribbon there. Yeah, I actually forgot to send this to the client because, but they'll get it later today. Yeah, maybe we can move on. So this is part of the finished paper. It's about giving and receiving gifts. This is me with the Wacom Cintiq screen a couple of weeks ago when I was drawing live on TV as Kullitäti, you know, it's like a lady from the 60s, 50s and 60s, and she drew on like stories for kids. And I've never been on a live show before, and it was really horrible. And I was like, I had maybe 2 minutes to finish the illustration, and it was like really precisely timed with the audio track from Kulli's voice, like an old audio track. So there was a lot of technology going on. It was really uncomfortable, and I was really out of my safety zone. And I should have brought this glitter suit, but I really salute show business people, because I was like, okay, soon it's my turn, and the people who were singing and dancing on the show were just like, okay, I'm going on now. Like, so cool. Joy is like my power word, and I really try to like charge my illustrations with as much like joyful energy as I can, and I use a lot of shapes and compositions, and I think people think that I'm like a color person, but I like to work in black and white as well. It's more about the shape and the mood and the energy in the image than the colors, I think. Here are my favorite things to draw. Mermaids. It's like, I think I've drawn like thousands of mermaids. They're just so fascinating. Like, do they have a belly button? Do they? And I love to draw smoking women. I love like drawing like a pretty woman who's like smoking, because there's like some kind of contrast. I love drawing kids with hats. I love drawing naked chubby men and root vegetables, flowers of course, and people who read, striped objects, apples, houses, etc. Mermaid. Woman smoking and flowers. Woman smoking. Naked chubby man. Yeah. I made a poster for Pori Jazz like 2011, as you can see, and that was actually one of my like career highlights when we were at Pori Jazz with my family, and we were at the Elton John concert, and we were like way back. So there was like a tiny Elton John and a huge Sanna Mander poster behind him. Sorry for the quality of some of these images. This, for instance, like a print file I didn't have, so it looks weird because it has like print colors. This is also coming out now this Christmas, even though I made it last year, or maybe it's the next, I don't know. Yeah, but this is like a print for Kipling, bag company. This is going to be all over the world. I like to think that dreaming is like something you just have to dare to do to be creative, and also like dreaming in the sense that you're visualizing like an event that will happen in your life, or like an illustration even can be about dreaming. And it's funny because I started at some point, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I just started talking about my dreams, like for everybody I met, and especially in a bar, I started talking like, I want to build which one should I take? Okay, my biggest dream is to start like a really fantasy play house for children in Helsinki, maybe with a cafe. maybe with art and workshops and stuff like that, and where all Japanese tourists would come. But when I started talking about my dreams, like things just start happening in that direction. That's magic. For me, illustration or drawing is also like daydreaming and playing also. It's like the illustration is like a room or a stage where I create the pieces on the stage, and I get to decide what they look like, what's gonna be there, what are they gonna do with the stuff there. Then I also think a lot about mood. Like, this was an illustration for Konstrundan. It's like a day when artists open up their studios for people to visit. So this was the illustration for the poster. And I was just thinking like, what could be like a really nice studio to visit? And this is it. These were some illustrations for New York magazine, and this was also like, this was like a wedding themed article with, I made a lot of illustrations, but it was also fun to just dream away like in a perfect wedding. Actually, our wedding was the opposite of this, but still. We were in a dark room with like, yeah. This is an illustration by Elon Wikland, a Swedish illustrator, Swedish-Estonian. This is like Lucia morning and this like the mood, you know, like the atmosphere in this illustration is so spot on. Also love the mood in Wes Anderson's movies, and it's like so perfect. It's like when I see his movie, I'm like, what? What? I don't, you know, it's like too much, you know? Look at it. What kind of bird are you? It's so perfect. It's also like, for instance, this image is like haunting me somehow. It's like I see it following me in like many different illustrations. You see like traces of some images I've seen in movies or something. When I was a kid, I was really into like quirky 50s, 60s stuff, and nobody of my friends knew what that was all about, but I didn't care. Like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, it's like my inspirational, happy place. Like when something is like super duper sweet, it has to be like evil too. I like that. I love the fact that they made real chocolate bars from the movie. And these are like from the movie, but there is actually a Wonka bar that's called Scrumdiddleluptious, like on the market today. That Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was originally illustrated by Roald Dahl. No, I mean written by Roald Dahl and illustrated by Quentin Blake. And when I was a kid, I was like, because I lived upstairs from a library, so I went to the library like every day. I could just take the elevator. I didn't have to put any shoes on. I could just take the elevator down to the second floor and go into the library. So I was like spending all my afternoons and weekends in the children's section. And I read all the Roald Dahl books, but I never liked Quentin Blake's illustrations because I don't know. I still don't know. Now I love them. It's funny. I have always been like a huge Moomin fan, and I read all of those books too when I was a kid, and I was like really in love with the world presented in those books. But when the Japanese animation came like 92 or something, I was like really upset, because for me that wasn't the Moomin world of my mind. Because the Japanese animation, it was like pastel colored, really nice, soft, and I always think like Tove Jansson's illustration have like there is a balance, it has like a dark side, as you can see here. Like happy family, but everything is like going to hell in the background. I love the borderland between like reality and real world, like with the Wonka bars, and that there is like a map of the Moomin Valley. It just makes it more real, and it makes like the stories more real and the reality more like a fairy tale somehow. Sorry for the bad image quality, but this was also like so cool when I was a kid, and I found this book. This is like a book by Mauri Kunnas, and it's about a newspaper office. I don't know what you call it. Like, people who make a newspaper. And then in the book there is the newspaper they're making, and it's filled with like news and stuff from there. And also on the last page it has like sports section, and it's funny because in Finnish it's just like kops, rops, 3-2. Kips, kops, 5-1. And it's really funny. And there's like a weather map, and the map is shaped like a dog. It's so funny. I can actually call myself like a children's book author, even though I've only made like a coloring book, but it has some text in it. So I made a princess coloring book. It's in Finnish and Swedish, and now also in Danish. And it began with like my daughter, when she got glasses, she was like, oh, I can't be a princess. And I was like, of course you can. And then we started like drawing princesses with glasses and with pants, and like princesses traveling and doing politics, and and then I realized that there is really like a need for new images of princesses. Like Disney has monopolized the image of a princess, and we need new images. This is a medieval princess. This is a punk princess. A giant princess. She's got a tourist in her hand. And I'm starting to make another princess book now, like a bigger book that will tell stories of like real princesses too, like so many cool life stories to tell. And I think like illustrating a children's book is like the most important thing to do as an illustrator, because somehow like it's like the power of giving images to kids who have such an open mind. It's like, for them, the reality is not that stable. Like, they haven't decided on what's right and wrong yet. So it's really cool to be able to influence them in some way. Last weekend we were on a cruise with like a Skidit group. They make the Skidit ry make like they have a festival for kids in the summer, and they have Skidit discos for kids. And now we're making like Skidit cruises to Stockholm. So I took the opportunity to dress as a princess and draw some princesses together with the kids. Also, I think like Skidit is my way of making my dream come true. We're making Helsinki better for kids. They're really like all the kids who but then we went to discos and we went to cruises, and in the summer we had a festival, I think it makes a difference. I'm gonna take some water. Okay, Finland. I think as partly Swedish and partly Finnish, I feel like I get to compare Finland and Sweden a lot. And the thing is, I want to avoid it, but I'm always like, yeah, but in Sweden we have this really nice thing, you know, I wish we had it in Finland too. It's really horrible, I hate doing that. But I feel like we in Finland, that we're still fighting like a fight against ugliness. And ugliness, I don't only mean like food packaging, I mean also like dark forces, like racists and angry people, introvert people, and following stupid rules, you know, and no joy. Like, I feel that there's a lot of joy and bubbles going on in our little creative bubble, but it would be so lovely to like get out of the bubble, and I would love to love Finland like outside the bubble as well. So this is something we should have in mind when we do things. Let's make Finland a bit better. I think like Finnish creatives, when they succeed abroad, it's almost like a sport. We're like, yeah, Finland, Finnish graphic designer is famous abroad, fantastic, you know, and that for me is like a good start. Yeah, Tina, you don't agree? You like? I'm part of an agency, Agent Pekka, and they do a lot of work for bringing Finnish illustrations abroad, illustrators abroad. I made a poster for Come to Finland. It had to be like Suomi, Finland, and it had to be like autumn. And I was thinking like maybe this is like the autumn of Finland. And I think everything's gonna get worse. There's gonna be a winter, but after that it will be spring. And I feel like Finland is still a teenager, like an angry, insecure teenager. And yes, Finland is it's under 100 years old, you know, like Sweden is such an old, generous, like, you know, like seen it all, like can afford to be generous, and Finland is like, I don't wanna do that. But like you can see it, like it's just like insecurity, and be lovely to know where we should go or something. I made some nationalist propaganda. Suomi, Finland, like a naked baby angel. These are stamps. And then I made this, it's not out anymore, it was last week I think, this poster for Baltic herring market. And this was also like thinking like everything's gonna get a little bit dull and gray in the autumn, like I want to give like a vitamin injection on the streets, like a bright light energy lamp. And I'm often called like a retro illustrator, and I agree partly, but I think it's also like I'm mostly trying to capture like a mood. This is how I imagine like what the best part of Silakkamarkkinat is, that it is like the good old days and also timeless in some way. This is my work this year as a cake diagram, and like I do some campaigns like illustrations for abroad and some magazines, a lot of book covers, some posters of Finnish magazines. This % a couple of years ago. It's going well for the Finnish magazine industry. Now I do some of my own book stuff. There's a lot of emailing, sending files, some dressing up as a princess and drawing just for fun and doing some skidit stuff. I do a lot of Christmas stuff too. I think I made my first Christmas illustration at midsummer this year. Yeah, book covers. This is one recent book cover I made that I'm really proud of. It's like Sara, how would you describe this book?
It's about sort of traveling, going from one place to another, and sort of being in between, especially in between sort of going after what you love, but women going after men, and then sort of seeing that is this, where will I end up? So, very bad description.
Yeah. There's also a lot of like lust in the book and very much like physicality. I don't know. Yeah. So desire. Yeah. So I was like, what I thought about when I made this was like combining the traveling, some moving places, being at different places at the same time, and the body. And that made sound like a naive combination, but of course there are so many different ways to execute the idea. These were like the end papers of the book. It's also like a map, but it almost looks like a disease somehow. These are just some random covers I've made. Also, this was such an honor to make, and it was just like a paperback book, but I wanted to make this book, it's Summer Book by Tove Jansson, to make it look like it always looked like this. That is not a new book, it's like a classic. But then I had to make like a series, and for instance, this book had a totally different cover, like the original print, and there was no illustrations for the book. And I was like, okay, so how can I, because I want to use Tove's illustrations. I don't want to draw it myself. So I went to the Kallio library. I spent one day there going through all Garm magazines, which she has illustrated a lot in, and found some illustrations that suited the story. And these illustrations have nothing to do with the book from the beginning. But these are the print files, so looks really funny like this. This is a book with letters sent between Edith Södergran and Hagar Olsson, and they were like friends, and they were sending letters. And they met only like 4 or 5 times, but they really wanted to meet more often. Edith was sick, and she was stuck in a house far away. So I wanted to illustrate them like being together. It's like, in all of the book there is like a longing for being together and meet. So it felt really nice to put them together in one picture at last. Also, I wanted it to feel like papery, like being a bit old-fashioned and feminine and toned down. This is Winter War, Talvisota by Philip Teir, and this is not a good illustration as such, but I think the contrast between the title, like Winter War, and then having like a really nice bouquet, it works really well. The client, after this was published, one client from Sweden was like, we want a ribbon too. So I was like, yeah, what else? They were like, yeah, just a ribbon. Yeah. Then I illustrated a really funny story. Punis, and Andre, who has written, is here. It's written in Stadin Slangi, and it's really funny. But sorry for the bad quality, but I'm so proud of having this like back cover, and it's like yeah. So as you can see, like this is not like Sanna Mander style. All of these covers, book covers, I don't think they should look like my illustrations always. But it's really fun to get to explore different styles and doing things I wouldn't do like normally as illustrators. I feel like this is also a really nice and fun playground. These books are actually bestsellers at the moment. And here I was thinking with this book that Peppe is like a blogger, Finnish-Swedish blogger, and she's really famous and she's like a media person. I felt that we need to show her, and maybe I would have done it in a different matter, like style now, but it's also like she's very relaxed and everyday-ish, you know, and she's very like, so I kind of felt that it would be nice to just use like a normal photo of her. And this book is like, has anybody read it? It's really funny, and it's about sex. And the book is pretty like rivo. So I wanted the book, and it's really funny as well. I wanted the cover to be humorous, but not to show like a man or something. So it's just like a phallic symbol, or many of them. This is a typical magazine job. This was for a Swedish magazine article. So this was like a spread, and the text started here. It was about censorship. The article was about censorship in literature through different ages and covering a lot of different topics. So that kind of articles can be a bit difficult to illustrate. So even if Linda says like, yeah, I'm just gonna make an illustration with a lot of stuff in it, it's like, I feel, it's like presenting a lot of toys for the reader. Like these are your toys for this article, and the reader can kind of play around with the toys in her mind while reading the article. Here was the sketch for that I sent. Here's another sketch for the same magazine. The article was about like that modern young writers only write about like being bored and not finding one's place in society. This was the finished illustration. These are my least favorite things to draw. Airplanes, it's super difficult. Like, yeah, I don't know. Especially when you need to draw them like from the front, or it's like, oh no, it's horrible. And you know, it's just like a long thing with some dots, but you never know how to put the wings. Because you know, if you look at a airplane from the side, the wing is just like this, but you can't draw it like, you have to kind of do something with it. It's really difficult. Also, I have made some illustrations that have been like, yeah, it's one spread illustration about liquid natural gas pipeline network, transportation process and flow. Or management in a changing media environment. And then the art director sends a brief like, yeah, just make some business people like meeting, talking, maybe doing work on their laptop. It's like, horrible. Bread is really difficult, except from like knäckebröd, like Swedish knäckebröd, like a round thing with a hole in it. Because it's just like a... And an upset face is also really difficult, like to draw that. And a front view of a hand. I hate doing vectors, horses. Should have practiced that when I was a kid. I didn't. And glass is really difficult, yeah. And someone else's dreams. Last summer I made one, and yeah. And the client was like, well, the whale didn't have that expression in my dream. Sorry. A friend of mine wrote an article about her journey through surviving breast cancer, and it was really beautifully written. It was really emotional and very personal. She asked me to illustrate it, and I was like, I don't know, it's so difficult. Like, the text was like, wanting to be pretty, but wanting to be strong and not having to be pretty, and like wanting to have big hair, but still like wanting to be proud, not having hair, and you know, like wanting to be pretty, but knowing you look like a monster. You know, it was like really difficult topic, but I think it went good. Okay, how to be a princess. These are some suggestions from RuPaul's Drag Race, which is my favorite show on earth. This is the most important one. Thank you.